Good evening, Moon Scouts. I'm here today with Vindicated Entertainment, and today we have something super special in store. Today we are going to be checking out 5 super spooky, awesome board games. So let's see what these are all about.
Alright, so the first spooky game up on our list is a game called Dead of Winter, which is really cool because it is a zombie apocalypse survival board game.
Okay, so like Walking Dead, but in board game form?
In board game form. However, one of the biggest differences is The Walking Dead, if you've noticed, never takes place during the winter. It never,
that's a good point.
There's like one episode that's during the winter, and this one is all about the winter. So it has a really cool aesthetic that you won't see in The Walking Dead.
Yeah, okay, cool.
And fun fact, the reason for that is because The Walking Dead is filmed in Atlanta, and they can't get snow there. And it's too costly for them to do like the fake snow.
See, I knew that actually.
Yeah, but
that makes sense.
Yeah, but I digress. Dead of Winter is a fun game. This is definitely for people looking to dive into a longer game. A game that is a little bit more in depth and will take you a while to read the rules, especially if you don't have someone that can like help guide you through it. But it's super fun because there's dozens of different survivors you run across. There's different events that can happen, such as like bandit camps coming to attack you. There can be a guy that just decides to steal all your food and run away like with your food, so then the people in your little like sanctuary of a town is like trying to survive, but they're all starving, and then you have to decide if you want some of them to die off to like help other people out. Just tons of crazy stuff happens in this, yeah.
Cool. So I can definitely see that being a really good premise for like a tabletop board game, just because there's so many different choices to be made in those circumstances.
Yeah, there's actually cards that give you choices too when they flip up. They are called crossroad cards, and they'll say, hey, you encounter this strange old man that wants you to come to his log cabin. He says
that doesn't sound suspicious at all.
He says that he has a ton of weapons for you and your people, but he can't carry them all by himself. And if he lets you have the weapons, then like in exchange for the weapons, then you give him shelter. And that's a reasonable argument. It's like, hey, I need shelter. I don't want to be by myself. I have all these weapons I can give to you and your people, but I'm going to need you to come back with me. And then you have to make a decision if you want to do that or not. And if you do that, you put your people in danger. Because these different survivors that you encounter, one can be as crazy as a ninja, but some might just be like hikers and woodsmen and stuff, and they all have different abilities. And so if you send your ninja out there, he might be likely to survive because he has some cool ninja skills, but you're going to feel bad if the old man somehow kills him, stabs him in the back, shoots him in the back or something. Something that can happen though.
Okay. Okay, so here's a question. Roughly how many players would be wanting to play this together?
That's a good question. The players is from 2 to 5. I've never played this with 2 players. I don't know how that experience would go. I think 4 and 5 players, well, I'd say 3 to 5 players seems ideal. So if you have like a small group, but it is a group of people, then I think that would be ideal for this board game.
Okay, awesome. Is there a certain like age you think it's good for, like up or?
Well, a lot of games will have on the boxes like the recommended age, the players, and all that. And this says the age would be 13 plus, which I think sounds pretty reasonable.
Okay, and what would you say is the skill level of the type of player to play something like this?
I'd say of the 5 games that we're discussing today, this is the more complex of the 5 games.
Okay.
I definitely think it's playable for anyone interested in playing it. Of course, just reading through the rules, learning how the game's played, I think it's laid out pretty well. So if you're interested in playing it, you'll be able to learn how to play it. With that being said, this game will definitely help if you have someone that knows how to play it or they played it before. There's tons of video tutorials and everything, though, to learn how to play the game.
Awesome. This would be a good actually for either the spooky fall time or for the winter time.
Yeah, especially if you want to celebrate Halloween, if you want to carry that past October and into December.
There we go. Okay, awesome. Is there any other information you want to share about this game?
I think that's about it. Dead of Winter, it's a lot of fun, definitely worth checking out. It's been out for a few years, a lot of people love it. Check it out.
Awesome.
So, next up on our list is a new game that I started playing, which is called Growl. It actually just got released. It was a Kickstarter-based game, and it is so much fun. If you've ever played Werewolf, have you played Werewolf before, where everyone sits around, closes their eyes?
Yes, I have.
This card game is based on that premise, except you have some cards, and instead of having it where everyone closes their eyes and you might can hear someone moving next to you, or you kind of like pick up on what's going on. This involves cards, and what happens is someone will begin the game as a werewolf at random. You don't know who the werewolf is. And then you have cards that can bite people. You have cards that are pitchforks that can deal damage. You have salves, which heal your wounds. And then you also have charms, which will be able to help prevent you from turning into a werewolf if you're bitten a lot. So what's cool about it is in the game, you go around, you take different turns, and you have to hand out cards to other people.
Okay.
And this matters because like a potion will come up, and you're like, well, who wants this? And the guy that's the werewolf could say, hey, I need it. I'm going to die if I don't get it. But you don't know that he's the werewolf. So you give it to him and you start giving him all your resources. And it turns out that he's trying to take all your resources from you because when it's nighttime, he can start killing you off.
Okay. So this is like a much more complex version of werewolf?
Yes, but they do it in a way that's not complex, which is cool.
Okay.
So it is more complex than a standard game of werewolf, but only because a standard game of werewolf is so simple, like anyone can play it.
Yes.
This is still very, very simple.
Okay, because I will say it's been a while since I've played werewolf, so I don't exactly remember like the rules, but I kind of remember the mostly the premise of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing that happens in werewolf is like everyone can close their eyes, and then the werewolf can just point at you for no reason other than just like even on the first night, the werewolf points at someone. You all open your eyes and that person's dead. Well, in this game, it gives you a lot more choices where you're not just going to like randomly die right out the gate.
Okay.
Because what's going to happen is you can't die until it's nighttime usually, or if you pass around too many pitchforks to someone and you start stabbing them to death, then they'll die. But usually that doesn't happen unless you're pretty sure that they're the werewolf.
Okay.
So yeah, the game is super fun though. It's tons of bluffing and tricking, and there's also some different cards that you can throw into the game to change up the way it plays every time you play it.
Okay, and I'm noticing like here on the box it says, oh, I read that wrong. I thought it said players 10 to 20, but it does say players 4 to 10.
Yeah.
So you can get, and I do remember with werewolf, you can play with a lot of people.
You can.
So is that? Would 10 still be like the max though for this, or?
I would say for this 10 would be the max only because there's a certain amount of cards each person would get, things like that. And if you tried to go up to say 20 people, then you wouldn't have enough cards to spread out that much.
Okay.
With that being said, most of the time you're not going to have 20 people all in a room to play a game with.
Right.
But I mean, even if you have 10 players, there's not even many board games that can hold up to 10 players.
Right.
But Growl is one of the games that can do that. So it's a good game to bring out if there's going to be a lot of people. And it is 4 to 10, so it's not a good. You can't play it 2 players or 3 players. So it's definitely more of a party
type game. Because when I was at Dragon Con this year, a few of my friends, they actually had a werewolf, I wouldn't call it like a panel per se, but they had an event where you could go play werewolf, but it was like an entire room of people. Like, I didn't go to it, but I think it was probably like 100 or something people in the room.
That sounds cool. So in that case, werewolf would be a more fun game to play in that case, because with 100 people, even if you had enough cards, you'd have way too much going on.
That's what it seems like. Okay, so you still want to kind of keep... You don't want to go, like, too crazy with it.
If you have 10 or less players, play Growl. If you have more than 10 players, play Werewolf. If you don't know what Werewolf is, some people call it Mafia. That's another term for playing it. Anyways, you can search up Werewolf or Mafia. Those are fun games, too. But usually those are going to be better with just a ton of people, like Bunnie Bats pointed out at Dragon Con.
And, okay... So I'm not sure if you talked about this already, but it says on here Growl expansions. Are these separate, like, expansions that you buy for it?
They are. So they have the Curses expansion, the spells, and whatever else is listed there before she moved it.
Sorry.
Yeah, I can't remember the expansion. I don't have the expansions.
Okay, so it's...
Undead and 7 Sins. So, yeah, I have not played with the expansions. I assume, though, that since the rest of the game is a lot of fun, the expansions would be fun as well. And they probably actually have an expansion that could probably expand the amount of players. Yeah. I don't know if they do or not, but I've seen games do that. I mean, like I said, the 4 to 10 players, that is a lot of players, so it also wouldn't surprise me if they didn't have an expansion for that, because usually most people don't have, more than 10 players. And actually in the board game industry, it's a common problem where people don't even have 2 people to play with. They're like, It's actually been popular to have solo-based games.
Solo?
Yeah, where they just have a board game they bring out and they just play by themselves, which is kind of sad, but...
Gosh.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. I guess that they're, catering to that.
Yeah,
They're making games for people. Aw. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to tell you that really stood out to me, which is not related to gameplays, I really love the art on this.
I do too.
Because on the front here, it gets very just, bold and colorful, and on the back, you see little monsters playing, and I love, the art on the little creatures here. I don't know how well you guys can see it, but it's really cute, so that makes me excited to see what the rest of the deck looks like.
Yeah, it all has the same art style.
Awesome.
I'm not entirely sure. It might all be the same artist. I would assume it is because it all looks the same, but it looks amazing. And like I said, I got it from Kickstarter, and whenever I get a game on Kickstarter, what usually draws you in is the artwork.
Yeah, definitely.
So when I saw that this is a fun, cartoony style with bright colors, but also the dark Halloween look to it.
Yes.
It's perfectly up my alley.
Yeah, same.
So I was on that. So I don't automatically buy a game just because it has that, but the game itself looked good too. So it's the perfect marriage between the two. So I definitely just had to get it, and I'm glad I did.
Oh, awesome. Is there any last minute remarks you want to say about this game?
Nope, next game.
Alright, so...
Okay, so next game. We will be talking about Bloodmoon.
Ooh.
So many of you might know this game as the popular video game.
Yes, I am definitely aware of the video game. I have played it. I love the aesthetic, but it is way too difficult for me, I will admit. So I'm interested to see what the difficulty of the card game is like.
That's a great question. So what's cool about this card game is it's actually not very difficult to play at all.
Okay.
And it's semi-cooperative, but mostly not. And what I mean by that is everyone is playing as a hunter. So everyone's in this together, and you're there to kill monsters.
Okay.
The catch is you're competing to earn the most trophies by killing the most monsters.
Okay, cool.
And you have to work together to kill the monsters. So what's cool is everyone starts off with the same amount of cards. They start off with the same exact cards. So you know what everyone has. And that way you can also ask questions. If you're a new player, you can say, hey, I have this in my hand, this in my hand, this in my hand, like we all do. So how does this work? And they can show you and tell you. Unlike other card games where you draw a random hand, they don't know if they can help you out and stuff. This game is super simple to play, but has a lot of strategy and depth to it.
Okay.
Where I feel like if you don't know what you're doing, you're probably going to lose a lot of time if there is someone that is very strategic. So that could be a downside for you.
Okay.
But if you're into strategy, then this game is really good for you because this game has a lot of strategy. So for example, whoever lands the last hit on the monster gets the trophy.
Okay.
So the objective is to get the last hit. So if a monster comes out with say 5 health, then everyone will have a weapon that deals 2 damage, and everyone has a weapon that deals 1 damage. The weapon that deals 1 damage always deals the damage before everyone else, unless someone else uses that same weapon.
Okay.
Then it goes last.
Oh, wow.
So the trick is you have to assume what everyone else will do, and then if you assume correctly, then you will probably start winning the game.
Okay.
But if you start assuming and other people bluff and change up what they do, so for example, if I play the 2 damage, and the next person plays 2 damage.
Mm-hmm.
If the third person plays the 1 damage, they will get the trophy.
Okay.
But if I can tell that they're wounded and that they're going to play the card that lets them heal, then I can kind of bluff that and say they're going to heal. So then once they heal, they're not going to get the last hit. And then during the next wave, I can use the gun that will shoot it for a damage before anyone else gets to do anything, and then I'll get the trophy. So it's a lot of that idea of trying to think of what everyone else will do, and always being a step ahead of them.
Okay, so it is still very strategy based.
It's super strategy based, but it's simple as maybe checkers is an odd comparison, but you know how checkers anyone can play it, but if someone's a master at checkers, you're not gonna beat them.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I feel like this is that. So
so you could be playing with some hustlers then if you're
with
not
this
careful.
game, yeah.
Oh man, okay, that makes a lot of sense then.
Also, as far as the recording of this video, I have currently not lost a game of Bloodborne. So I have not. I'm kind of scared to say this because as soon as I play this next,
I'm never
gonna
playing
lose.
with you.
I'm gonna lose probably the very next game I play. But I just want to get this out here on camera. I have not. I have not lost a game of Bloodborne yet. I love it.
You mean the card game?
The card game. Okay. I love the card game so much.
So, but you've lost to the video game Bloodborne.
funny enough, I have not played the video game.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because with video games, since I make games, I don't have a lot of time to play video games, and I'm really about the story when it comes to video game. And I think Bloodborne looks amazing story-wise.
Yes.
But I know that I'll probably get stuck on something.
Oh.
And I'll spend hours after hours after hours that I could be putting into like making a game. So
I completely understand that tough. Because like it's insane. It's insanely like how hard it is to just get past the very first area. I mean, that's the whole point of these games. It's like you have to keep playing the same thing over and over and over again.
I'm someone that, you know, if I get stuck on a game, I like the option to have it be easier.
Yeah, I'm the same. So we're both on the same page about that.
But as far as the game looks, like video game wise and stuff, like I love the art. I love the theme of it. I really do want to play it. I was spoiled with some things that just piqued my interest more than anything else. So I do want to play it at some point.
Okay. And what is the I'm not sure if he says, what's the recommended amount of people for this one? Is it the typical, like, 3, 4?
It says 2 to 5, but it's like a misprint. It's 3 to 5. You don't want to play this with 2 people. You want to play it with 3 to 5 people, which is kind of a weird situation, 3 to 5, because sometimes, you know, it might just be you and a friend, and you can't play the game, and sometimes you have a bunch of friends over, and you might have 6 people, and you just can't play the game either. So that is a downside, I'd say. But if you have 3 to 5 people, this is a really fun game to play. It has much of that gothic horror, you know, that gothic horror tone, and it's a lot of fun. I definitely recommend it, not because I win every time I play it, but it's a fun game.
Awesome. Sounds good. All right. Move on to the next one.
Moving on to our next game. This is actually tough. Let's talk about the
elephant in the room.
Yeah, the elephant in the room, the black sheep, the Jenga, the classic Jenga. So you may be wondering, since the inception of this video, why in the world do I have a Jenga tower?
I've been wondering that. I still don't know. So we're about to find out.
So what's cool is Jenga towers are super easy to get a hold of.
Yeah.
They're not very expensive. And everyone knows how to use a Jenga tower. You set up the tower, you start pulling the blocks out, and they go to fall over. So the reason why I have this for a spooky game to get you into the Halloween season is because there's actually a rule set that you can find online called Dredd. And what Dredd is this idea of you're basically telling like horror stories, ghost stories, and anytime you have this tower built, they call it the Dredd Tower. If you're playing Dredd. And basically everyone's playing either themselves or they play like just some human that is an interpretation of a character that they make. And you go through the story, and anytime they face any sort of obstacle, they pull from the tower. And if the tower falls over, then they die. And you tell them how they die. Yeah. So you can have a whole story about how a bunch of people from high school get together a few years later as like a kind of reunion. They go out, they have to climb over some fence, they go explore some sort of log cabin out in the woods that some person knew about.
Yeah.
It turns out that log cabin is possessed by a demon, so the demon starts, coming after them or something. And you can play all this with the Jenga tower. So what's fun about it is you don't need to like read a rule book, you don't need to have any sort of game experience. You can, as long as you can just tell like a fun story like around the table with your friends, you can just have this Jenga tower sitting there, pull from it, falls over, character dies. There's a little bit more rules that you can get into. Dredd has some like character sheets you can fill out to sort of expand on like the ideas of your character's personality and different things that can help you role play. But in general, like even if you didn't want to dive into that stuff, just the ideas like setting up the tower, and it brings a lot of tension too. That's what's great about it. So most tabletop role-playing games use dice, and dice do carry some tension, but having the tower is very good for horror-based games. Yeah. Because as the tower starts leaning and it's about to fall over, it's like, okay, this could make or break your character if you pull from the tower and the tower falls over and your character dies. It adds a lot of tension there.
Boy, yeah, that is like, that's really cool, because this is definitely the only game we've talked about that I've actually played. I think most people have at this point, but I've never played a version other than just literally like pulling the bricks out. The only thing I've played different is people have like written things on the blocks, and you have to like do what they say on the blocks. Yeah. And that's like the only alternative way. So I didn't even know there was like different ways to play it. So that's really cool. And another thing I like about it, speaking of spookiness, is the box. It is orange and black. Was that on purpose?
It's not on purpose. I'm gonna give a shout out to Jeffrey who got this for me. So thanks, Jeffrey. This was not on purpose, though. This just happened to be orange and black.
That's so cool. That's like perfect.
Yeah, and if so Dredd is very good if you want to go for a more realistic, like you're playing as yourself, you're playing a real person, and you're going through this horrible situation. I actually made my own version of a tabletop role-playing game that uses the tower, which is called Bittersweet Trick or Treat RPG, and
Ooh.
it is the more fun version where if you want characters with powers.
Mm-hmm.
So like whenever we played, we have someone played like an animated scarecrow, and we had someone play where they controlled vines. So if you wanted to go more of like you're like a special character, like an anime character or superhero or something, and you have these different abilities, then that would be something that you could play. And I'm sure Bunnie Bats we can have a link in the description.
Yes,
so you can check that out.
Definitely.
But either way, whichever one you play, they're both a lot of fun, and all you need is the Jenga Tower to play.
Sounds good. That's really good for where we're gonna put it.
Oh, I was just gonna. Okay.
Yeah, that's really great for if you don't feel like learning a bunch of rules.
Exactly. That's why it's
like you want maybe a party game where you want to enjoy a game with some friends, but you really don't feel like learning a bunch of rules in advance.
That's what's so great about it. Like tabletop role-playing games can be the most confusing games and also the easiest ones, which is a really weird paradox. So basically, they're the easiest because all you really need is something to control whether something succeeds or fails, and that's usually dice, as I stated earlier.
Yeah.
But in terms of the tower, it's so simple. Just have a tower there, and it's like, okay, do you succeed or fail? Pull from the tower. But yeah, it's just so easy in that way. But there's so much more that you can add to it if you wanted.
Yeah, awesome. What do we got for our final spooky game of the evening?
For our final game, we have Campy Creatures, which is another game I got from Kickstarter. As you can tell, the art is amazing.
Yes.
I love the art so much. It super pulled me in, and then I found out the game was a lot of fun. All these games I've played with my friends, played with our team here, and this has been probably the team favorite game to play. That's not a game that we're making or that we've already made. So this is just our favorite. In Campy Creatures, it's a game in which you're playing as different monsters, and the objective is you're capturing mere mortals, and you're
mere mortals.
Mere mortals. You're capturing the mortals, so these lab scientists can experiment on them or something.
Cool.
So basically, I think you're a lab created monster fetching mortals for your scientist counterpart, and everyone has the same cards in their hand, which is again pretty cool for this type of game. So you know what everyone else can play, what everyone's options are, and the objective is, say there's one mortal per person playing. So one mortal might be worth 4 points, one might be worth 2, one might be worth 1. Well, everyone plays a card from their hand face down on top of the table, and then you flip over your cards, and whoever has the highest number on their card gets to first pick on which mortal that they take.
Okay.
So, but what makes things tricky is after you already use that monster, you can't use it again. It's discarded for the remainder of the game. So you have to choose when you want to use your highest monster. And what makes it even trickier is there's cards with effects. So for example, the highest monster in the game has a power of 8. So the 8 will pretty much always win whenever you use it. However, there's a card that has a power of 2 or 3, and whenever you play that one, it says if the creature power of 8's in play, then you get to go before that creature, even though it has more power than you.
Okay.
So if I know that you're about to use your 8 because there's a really good card in play, I can use my weaker card to still get the advantage over you.
Oh wow!
But here's where it gets really tricky though. If I end up using that card thinking that you're going to play the 8 and you end up playing the 7, then I was wrong, and then you get to go ahead of me.
Okay.
So it's just there's a lot of bluffing and deduction that goes into it. It's a lot of fun. It's super easy to get to. This is the first edition rule set. I also have the second edition, which I haven't got to play as much. I personally recommend playing the first edition if you're more into playing an easier to get into game, a more casual game. If you're a super hardcore gamer and you love tons of pieces, components, mechanics, all this stuff going on, I recommend the second edition. But if you want something that's just easy to break out with any of your friends, regardless of how much they're into games, then I definitely recommend the first edition of Campy Creatures, even though I do believe it's currently pretty hard to get a hold of because it seems like they're sold out of the first edition pretty much everywhere, and now they're shipping out a lot of the second edition.
Which edition is this?
That one's the first edition.
Ooh.
Yeah. And the second edition keeps the same art style. They add a Frankenstein monster. They add a giant tarantula, man-eating plant. like a robot, on like killing rampage and stuff. So they add some cool stuff, but they also add like locations. They add venom tokens and power up tokens. They add like a ton of extra stuff that you have to. It makes it harder to like set up the game, take a little bit longer. So that's why I said that's the second edition is more for people that are super invested in games.
Okay.
And their whole group is more like into tabletop games, whereas the first edition is the perfect game for like any group of people just wanting to play a fun board game, especially if they're wanting to get into the spooky Halloween spirit.
Okay. Okay, that's really great to know, because that's always my question, because I personally I'm very interested in tabletop role-playing games, but I've barely honestly played any. I've mostly just played like Dungeons and Dragons, and that's really just role-playing rather than like using pieces and cards and everything. So that's always my question with all these that we've talked about, or one that if I'm looking at in a store or online, how easy is it to play? Is it something from someone who's more seasoned and is used to playing those kind of games, or if it's more for someone who just never really plays them?
Yeah, I'd say Campy Creatures, luckily, if you are just now getting into games, out of all the games we talked about today,
okay,
this would be the easiest as far as our board games to play.
Okay. Other than Jenga, I guess?
Yeah, like, because I count that as like the like a tabletop role-playing game-ish kind of setup. When you play it that way.
When you play with the story or the ghost story.
Yeah, but this, like, that's not a board game. But this is. You know?
Okay.
So I would say that this is the easiest tabletop game to play.
What would you say? Would you say the Bloodmoon or the Dead of Winter's which is the most, like, complex or for...
Dead of Winter is more complex.
Okay.
But it's also all cooperative, too. So some people really love that about games, whereas the other games I mentioned... Well, these three that I mentioned, they're all competitive. Mm-hmm. Some people don't like competitive games because maybe they always lose or whatever it may be. I don't know. but
so sore losers.
So, I don't understand it, but okay. Some people don't like it. This one's all cooperative, though. And it can feel cool because that means that you and all your friends are always going to be on the same team.
I do like that. Like...
I did mention that. I sorry, I forgot. There is someone can be a traitor though. I forgot about that. Someone in this game can be a traitor, and you don't know if they're a traitor until the very end of the game.
Oh, that's interesting.
And what's crazy? Sometimes no one's a traitor, so you don't. It can psych you out where someone's like doing something kind of odd, and you're like, I don't know if I can trust you, and then they're like, you can trust me.
Yeah.
But it turns out they're the traitor, or maybe they're not. It's hard.
Or maybe they're not.
Yeah, and what fuels that part is that everyone has a secret objective that they can't tell everyone else. So one might be that you have to like hoard a certain amount of food for yourself. So if we're like, Bunny Bats, give us some more food, but your secret objective is like you have to collect all this food. Mm-hmm. So you're like, I'll only give you this much, and it's like, oh, maybe it's because she's the traitor.
Ooh, interesting.
Even though you're not, So this one's the more complex one, but it is cooperative. So if you're willing to. It makes it easier because you're all in this together. So if you're playing with your family or friends, even though it's more complex, you're all learning the game together. You're not worrying about beating one another. You're learning together, which is cool. Whereas something that's competitive, you might learn together, but the person telling you might not tell you everything when they should tell you because they want to beat you, because some people are mean like that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I'd say Bloodborne is simpler, but is more strategic as far as in just being like more cutthroat. So like, this game's not as cutthroat. I mean, there is that element of the traitor that can be kind of cutthroat. Right. But in general, this is cooperative, and this is like...
So maybe if you're more like competitive, you have really competitive, this one's better.
If you're super competitive, Bloodborne's the best. If you're wanting a long game that's cooperative, Dead of Winter is the best. If you want a game that's just fun to play with your friends, Growl's really good. Okay. If you want to tell ghost stories or just horror stories... the Dredd Jenga is the best.
Yeah.
Or if you just want your kind of like best of all worlds, like just kind of like our number one. Like these don't go in these. I didn't put these in a particular order,
right?
Except for Campy Creatures, I did say for last because, like I said, this is the game that my friends and I keep coming back to over and over again, more so than any other game that we play.
That's what I was gonna actually ask you, if you had a favorite of all of these.
It's definitely Campy Creatures.
Okay.
It's the one that I struggle the most with because we do like weekly live streams, and we love playing games on our Twitch channel, and I struggle sometimes because we all want to play Campy Creatures.
Yeah.
But I don't want to, like, every time
do
I post
it every single time.
post new videos, it's like, here's Campy Creatures again, here's Campy Creatures again, here's Campy... So
Yeah.
that's kind of an issue that we're having, but it's just a whole lot of fun. We really enjoy it. And actually, I've had a lot of my friends, like, go and buy the game for themselves.
Awesome.
And yeah, and because they're like, I enjoy it so much, I buy it. And those same friends told me that other games that I have that they enjoy, they don't want to buy because they feel like it'd be redundant, because anytime they play a game, it's usually with me and it's usually over here. But this game they love so much that they just have to have it anyways.
So, okay, and the other thing was, is it only Growl and Campy Creatures that are the Kickstarter ones?
You know what? Both of these possibly may have been as well. I actually thinking about it, I think Bloodborne is as well. It just threw me off because it has like the official video game.
Right.
But this is made by Cool Mini or Not, and Cool Mini or Not usually does Kickstarters.
Oh,
so
okay.
I do believe that's also a Kickstarter. This one, I'm the least sure about. I mean, obviously Jenga was not a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
But Dead of Winter, I'm not sure about, actually.
Okay.
But Kickstarter, you can find a lot of awesome board games, and actually that's where like most like tabletop games, that's like where they thrive, is Kickstarter now.
And you know, I guess I follow more video game related things, and there's a lot of people who use like, you know, Kickstarter crowdfunding for video games. That makes sense that it would apply to tabletop role-playing kind of games too. Yeah,
and unfortunately with video games, video games are more costly in general. And so there's been a lot more issues where some people say like, I'll never back a video game on Kickstarter just because like they'll ask for like $3 million, but really they need like 10 million, but they don't want to tell people they need 10 million.
Yeah.
And then they'll get like 5 million, and then they said that they only had 10% of the budget, it turns out, because they underestimated even on top of that. So there's a lot of crazy horror stories when it comes to that. I'm sure there's some video games. I know for a fact there's some video games that got kickstarted. They fully funded. They did super well. I actually have some friends that did a video game recently, and theirs is looking amazing. So I'm not saying that you can't have a video game on there.
Yeah.
It's just odd that like for board games in general, like some of the top board game companies use Kickstarter, whereas like the top video game companies don't use Kickstarter.
Okay.
In general, like they usually, like for video games, it's like these indie developers.
Right, indie ones.
Yeah. But like for board games, it's like every developer.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's such a huge board game like culture there that it's like you're just missing out so much if you're not on Kickstarter.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, these all sound like super great to me. I mean, obviously I know about Jenga, but I didn't even know about any of these other ones. Like I said, I don't really follow them, or the ones that I do know are just like the most popular. So I'm really excited about this. I love that they're all spooky themed. Of course, I'm all about that. So thank you so much for talking with us today about that.
You're so welcome. It's been an absolute pleasure. I had a lot of fun, because I too enjoy like spooky Halloween stuff.
Yeah.
So it worked out perfectly.
Awesome. Well, I'm awkward.
And I'm awkward too, so that's why we made this video together. It worked out well.
Thanks so much for watching today, and you can go and check out in the links below Vincent's company, Vindicated Entertainment, where they specialize in gaming and anime content. So you can go there and check out his YouTube channel and some of his other social media links and give him a follow, and be sure to subscribe to Camp Brightmoon's channel as well. See you next time.